In 2009, while the world argued about recessions and elections, a silent force began forming behind North Korea's sealed borders. No flags, no uniforms, just a handful of young prodigies pulled from obscure schools, isolated inside state-run cyber units. They weren't soldiers in the traditional sense. They were digital ghosts, trained to weaponize code, infiltrate networks, and shape a new kind of warfare. No one outside Pyongyang knew their names. No global intelligence agency considered them a threat yet. But in dim basement rooms, these young recruits typed in perfect silence, unknowingly building what would become the world's most unpredictable cyber weapon, the Lazarus Group. North Korea understood something the world underestimated. It couldn't win a conventional war, but it could dominate the digital battlefield. Sanctions strangled its economy, so the regime turned to cybercrime not as rebellion, but as survival. Lazarus became an economic weapon, designed to steal currencies, bypass global systems, and gather intelligence faster than traditional spies. Their early missions were clumsy, but their intent was clear: destabilize enemies, raise funds for the supreme leader, and remain invisible. Intelligence agencies saw random cyber attacks but never connected them. By the time they realized these events were coordinated, Lazarus had already learned, adapted, and evolved into a state-sponsored machine. Lazarus's earliest operations were experiments, simple intrusions into government networks, small-scale thefts, and reconnaissance missions. They weren't hunting for money yet. They were mapping weaknesses, testing the world's reactions. When a South Korean bank mysteriously lost its internal database in 2009, analysts dismissed it as a malfunction. When a media tower's broadcast system glitched and went dark, engineers blamed outdated hardware. These weren't accidents. They were Lazarus practicing. Every test taught them a lesson. Nations were slow to respond, corporations were blind to digital fingerprints, and chaos always looked accidental. For Pyongyang, it was confirmation. Cyber war would be their perfect weapon. The world finally met Lazarus in 2014, though not by name. When Sony Pictures announced The Interview, a comedy mocking Kim Jong-un, no one predicted it would trigger a national-level cyber war. Lazarus breached Sony's network with surgical precision, stealing terabytes of data, leaking employee records, and crippled entire systems. But what shocked investigators wasn't the scale, it was the motivation. This wasn't money. This was vengeance. A dictatorship had used a cyber army to punish a movie studio. The line between digital mischief and geopolitical warfare vanished instantly. For the first time, Americans realized a foreign adversary could bring a corporation to its knees from behind a keyboard. The FBI traced the Sony attack to North Korea, something once considered impossible. Forensics revealed Lazarus crafted malware, reused code fragments, and command servers tied to Pyongyang. The world was stunned. A small, isolated nation had penetrated a billion-dollar corporation with near-perfect execution. Media outlets described Lazarus as elite cyber ninjas, but the truth was more unsettling. They were underfunded, overworked young men forced into digital warfare for their government. Yet pressure made them dangerous. They coded relentlessly, learned rapidly, and grew fearless. Sony marked the moment Lazarus transcended crime and became a geopolitical threat, a shadow army willing to strike anyone, anywhere. In 2013, cybersecurity teams discovered something eerie. Malware containing code structures no independent hacker would ever use. It behaved like a military asset, modular, disciplined, silent. Analysts noticed patterns, time-stamped compilation windows matching Pyongyang work hours, Korean language metadata fragments, and encryption routines so clean they felt industrial. This wasn't improvisation, it was an assembly line. The malware could steal, spy, hijack, and erase itself without a trace. Every digital footprint pointed toward a single entity, but it moved like a ghost, shifting IPs across continents. Security teams realized they weren't chasing criminals. They were chasing a government-backed machine. When investigators followed the malware trail, it led to a secretive division inside North Korea's intelligence service, Unit 180. No uniforms, no insignias, just elite programmers trained from childhood, living in foreign apartments the state paid for. Satellite data suggested they operated from China, India, Southeast Asia, anywhere with stable electricity and high-speed internet. Their job? Steal currency, steal secrets, destabilize enemies. They didn't attack for bragging rights. They attacked because the state needed money to survive sanctions. And Unit 180 delivered, draining digital vaults one country at a time. This wasn't hacking, it was asymmetric warfare. Before Lazarus mastered cyber theft, North Korea printed the world's most perfect counterfeit US currency, the superdollar. But by the early 2010s, physical forgery became risky, and digital forgery was easier, faster, untraceable. Lazarus shifted from printing presses to code factories, replacing ink with botnets. By crafting fraudulent Swift messages and manipulating bank servers, they created digital dollars, indistinguishable from legitimate transactions. Money no longer needed to be smuggled across borders. It simply appeared in approved accounts. Banks couldn't detect the breach until millions were gone. It wasn't counterfeiting anymore. It was economic engineering. By 2014, Lazarus needed attention, not money. The target, Sony Pictures. A film mocking Kim Jong-un became a national insult, and the regime wanted humiliation in return. Lazarus breached Sony's internal system with a spear phishing email so normal it could fool anyone. Once inside, they detonated a worm that spread like wildfire, encrypting terabytes and deleting backups. Screens across Sony went black. Salaries, contracts, unreleased films, all leaked. But this wasn't chaos for chaos' sake. It was a global message. We can reach you anywhere. For the first time, the world understood Lazarus wasn't a gang. It was a geopolitical weapon. After Sony, Lazarus didn't hide. They escalated. They hit banks across Vietnam, Mexico, Chile, India, any place where digital defenses were weak. They attempted one of the biggest bank heists in history, the Bangladesh bank job. $951 million requested. $81 million successfully moved. Their malware infiltrated the Swift system, disguised as routine traffic. Their operators timed the transfer to a weekend, knowing no one would check until Monday. Every detail felt surgical. Investigators realized Lazarus wasn't experimenting. They were perfecting a global economic attack model, and the model was working. In 2017, the world woke up to digital fire. Hospitals shut down, trains halted, factories froze. Screens showed a red ransom note demanding Bitcoin. The attack spread at a speed no one had seen before. Investigators trace the worm's engine to an NSA exploit leaked online, repurposed by Lazarus into a self-propagating weapon. WannaCry wasn't meant to maximize ransom. It was stress-testing global chaos. A live experiment measuring how fast the world collapses when a single vulnerability goes viral. Over 200,000 systems in 150 countries fell, and Lazarus watched it all, silently mapping which nations cracked first. By 2018, Lazarus realized something powerful. Cryptocurrency bypassed banks, sanctions, and oversight. They built fake trading platforms, hijacked exchanges, and siphoned millions using quietly placed backdoors. They even launched targeted spear phishing campaigns against blockchain developers. Funds disappeared into mixer networks, split into thousands of microtransactions, and reappeared as clean, usable capital for the regime. Crypto wasn't just profit, it was survival fuel for North Korea's missile programs. Analysts finally understood. Lazarus wasn't stealing for greed. They were funding national strategy, one digital coin at a time. Lazarus evolved beyond brute force hacking. In 2018, they launched Apple Juice, a polished financial app that looked legitimate, functioned smoothly, and hid malware so deeply even experts struggled to detect it. Victims installed it willingly. The malware then harvested private keys, granting Lazarus full control of their wallets. It was the perfect Trojan horse: clean UI, trusted brand identity, impeccable performance. Most advanced cybercrime groups can fake phishing pages. Lazarus built entire fake companies, staffed with AI-generated employees, complete with customer support. Their ambition grew with every successful breach. By 2019, Lazarus malware no longer behaved like traditional code. It mutated, it adapted. It shifted its behavior depending on the system it entered, sometimes acting as spyware, sometimes as ransomware, sometimes lying dormant for months. Analysts compared it to biological evolution. The deeper investigators dug, the more unnatural the structure looked. Custom encryption, polymorphic engines, self-rewriting instructions. It was malware that behaved like a living organism. And behind it, Unit 180's programmers evolved their methods faster than global defenses could keep up. Lazarus escalated by targeting payment gateways and interbank networks across Africa, South America, and Southeast Asia. They exploited dusty legacy systems and staff untrained in cybersecurity. The method was always elegant: infiltrate, observe, then strike when the financial traffic was heaviest. Millions vanished in minutes. For smaller nations, the losses equaled months of GDP. International investigators noticed a dangerous trend. Lazarus wasn't just stealing. They were mapping vulnerabilities in the global economic fabric. One analyst warned, they're preparing for something bigger. When the world locked down in 2020, Lazarus moved aggressively. Remote workers were vulnerable, hospitals were unprotected, and governments were distracted. Lazarus deployed phishing emails disguised as COVID alerts and vaccine updates. They hit pharmaceutical companies racing to develop vaccines. They targeted teleconferencing platforms. They exploited human fear. During the pandemic, digital dependence shot up, and with it, attack surfaces. Lazarus capitalized on every weakness. While nations struggled with a virus, North Korea unleashed a silent digital pandemic of its own. In 2021, Lazarus pulled off the largest crypto theft in history, the Axie Infinity Ronin bridge hack. They compromised a handful of validator nodes and quietly authorized massive transfers, over $600 million. No alarms, no system slowdown. The breach was so subtle, the company didn't notice for 6 days. Experts called it a masterpiece of social engineering combined with technical precision. And once again, the stolen assets vanished through mixing networks, resurfacing as clean funds powering missile launches and weapons programs. This was state-sponsored theft operating at the scale of small nations. By 2022, Lazarus became almost untraceable. Their infrastructure shifted hourly across continents. They used zero-day exploits sourced from shadow brokers. They hid command centers in cloud environments used by millions of legitimate customers. Their phishing emails looked indistinguishable from real corporate communications. Even seasoned analysts were fooled. Investigators joked darkly, "Lazarus doesn't break into networks. They walk through the front door." Their stealth matured into invisibility. Their presence could exist for months before a breach was discovered. They weren't just hackers anymore. They were shadows written in code. Governments finally admitted the truth. Lazarus had become a geopolitical force. Cybersecurity agencies formed joint task forces tracking Lazarus operatives across continents. But the battlefield was invisible. No borders, no uniforms, no treaties. A silent Cold War unfolded in code. Every day, defense teams blocked attacks aimed at power grids, water systems, nuclear labs. Every night, Lazarus tried again. Their objective wasn't theft, it was leverage. Digital blackmail on a planetary scale. A new form of deterrence through uncertainty. Today, Lazarus operates like a multinational ghost corporation. Offices everywhere, headquarters nowhere. They build new malware families every year, target new sectors, and refine their strategies like a tech startup backed by a nation-state. Their programmers grow younger, their tools grow sharper, and their missions grow bolder. The world adapts, but Lazarus evolves faster. Their empire thrives in the hidden space between nations, laws, and technologies. And as long as the digital world expands, so will Lazarus, forever reshaping the battlefield we cannot see, but can never escape.